Everyone feared the Mafia boss, until the new waitress changed everything. In a city built on blood and secrets, Whyte learned that the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one holding the gun, but the one holding the tray. The air inside the Gilded Cage was thick with the scent of expensive cigars, aged bourbon, and the suffocating weight of unspoken threats. At the center of it all sat Damian Charles. He was a man of cold precision and lethal silence, a shadow king who ruled the city's underworld from a velvet-lined booth that felt more like a throne. In this room, no one dared to meet his gaze. Even the most powerful politicians spoke in whispers, terrified that a single wrong word might invite a death sentence. Damian believed he had calculated every variable, bought every soul, and neutralized every threat. He lived in a world where power was measured in firepower and fear. But he made one fatal mistake. He overlooked Whyte, the woman standing at the very edge of the light. To the elite criminals dining that night, Lucy was a ghost in a crisp blue uniform, a nothing whose only job was to ensure the crystals stayed full. They saw a clumsy waitress. They didn't see the tactical analyst with a mind like a razor and a heart hardened by the betrayal of the system. Lucy wasn't there for the meager tips or the grueling double shifts. She was the daughter of a disgraced police captain, a man framed and broken by the very men she now served. While the city's most dangerous predators laughed and plotted, Lucy was counting the exits, mapping the security rotations, and memorizing the cadence of Damian's voice. She was a master of invisibility, a silent observer holding the matches that would eventually burn Damian's perfect, violent world to the ground. She didn't come to the restaurant to find a job. She came to find the truth buried in the bloodstains of the Charles Syndicate. Little did Damian know, the girl he treated as a background fixture was the only person in the city capable of dismantling his empire before the appetizers were even served. The air inside the Gilded Cage didn't just smell like expensive cigars and aged bourbon. It smelled like the heavy, metallic tang of impending consequence. It was the kind of atmosphere that pressed against your lungs, forcing you to breathe shallowly. Whyte moved through the amber-lit haze like a ghost in a blue polyester uniform, her footsteps silent on the hand-woven Persian rugs. To the men sitting in the shadows, men who moved global markets with a whisper and ended lives with a nod, she was part of the furniture. She was a biological machine designed to refill crystal tumblers and disappear before she was noticed. That was their first mistake. They saw a waitress. Lucy saw everything. She knew that the man at table 4 was skimming from the construction unions because his hands shook whenever he checked his burner phone. She knew the district attorney was compromised because he never paid his tab and the management never asked him to. But most of all, she knew Damian Charles. Damian didn't sit in the center of the room. He occupied the far corner booth, the dead zone. It was a tactical masterpiece of a seat, high leather backs to protect his rear, a clear line of sight to both the front entrance and the kitchen galley, and enough shadow to mask the expression on his face. Damian was a man of sharp, obsidian angles and eyes that looked like they had been forged in the coldest parts of the Atlantic. Tonight, however, the Shadow King looked human. There was a microscopic sag in his shoulders, a weariness that only someone who had spent their life studying human silhouettes would notice. Lucy approached the booth, the weight of a heavy silver tray balanced perfectly on her fingertips. This was the moment of the night she both loathed and lived for. Her father, a man of ironclad integrity who had been chewed up and spat out by the very system Damian ruled, had taught her that the best way to destroy a fortress was to map its interior from the inside. As she leaned in to replace his empty glass, the light from the overhead chandelier caught the reflection in a silver spoon resting on the table's edge. In that distorted curve of polished metal, Lucy saw it, a flicker of movement by the coat check. A man in a heavy charcoal overcoat, too heavy for a humid Tuesday night, was sliding a hand into his breast pocket. His eyes weren't on the menu. They were locked on the back of Damian's head. The world slowed to a crawl. Lucy felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, the cold, sharp clarity that had made her the top tactical analyst in her class before the accident that blacklisted her family. She didn't panic. She didn't scream. "Don't reach for the glass, Mr. Charles," she whispered, her voice a low, steady vibration that barely carried over the soft jazz playing in the background. Damian didn't move a muscle, but his gaze shifted to hers. Up close, his eyes weren't just cold, they were hauntingly intelligent. "Keep your hands on the table," Lucy continued, her hand steady as she poured the amber liquid. "And whatever you do, do not look at the bar. There is a man in a gray coat behind you. He has a suppressed 9mm, and the red laser of his sight is currently hunting for a home on the third button of your waistcoat." For the first time in recorded history, Damian Charles blinked in genuine surprise. He didn't look back. He didn't reach for his weapon. He simply stared at the girl in the cheap blue uniform, seeing for the first time that the nothing, who served his drinks, was the only thing standing between him and a shallow grave. "Keep pouring, Lucy," he commanded, his voice a low, dangerous growl.
She did.
She poured until the glass was full, her eyes locked on the reflection, waiting for the trigger finger to tighten. The hunt was on, and the waitress had just declared herself the lead hound.
"Wait.
Don't go anywhere, bosses. The action is just starting. If you want to see how Lucy saves the king, we are begging you to help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. We work day and night to bring you these stories. Please show us some love. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and comment watching below so we know you're part of the inner circle. We need every single one of you." The silence was a thin glass ceiling, and it shattered with the violence of a sledgehammer. The heavy oak doors of the Gilded Cage didn't just open, they were kicked off their hinges, splintering into the air like shrapnel. A team of 4 men, moving with the synchronized lethality of a military unit, swarmed the dining room. These weren't street thugs, they were the Iron Skulls, the high-end cleaners for the Rossi family. The lead hitman, a man named Vane with a face mapped by scars and eyes that had long ago traded their humanity for a paycheck, leveled a suppressed submachine gun at Damian's booth. Most of the patrons, the millionaires and the models, did exactly what they were trained to do in a world of privilege. They froze. They waited for their money to save them. But Lucy Whyte knew that Lee didn't care about a bank balance. She didn't dive for cover. Instead, she pivoted on the heel of her non-slip work shoe, her hand closing around the handle of the industrial glass coffee pot she had just refilled. It was filled with a thick, oily brew maintained at a constant 195 degrees. With a grunt of focused effort, she launched the liquid in a wide, shimmering arc. The boiling coffee hit Vane square in his tactical vest, the liquid soaking through the fabric and hitting the sensitive skin of his neck and face. He let out a strangled, animalistic roar, his suppressed weapon spraying a wild line of lead into the ceiling instead of Damian's skull. "Get down," Lucy barked, her voice shifting from the polite tone of a server to the command of a drill sergeant. She didn't wait for Damian to agree. She grabbed him by the lapel of his $2,000 suit and yanked him over the heavy mahogany bar. Bullets shredded the space they had occupied a microsecond before, sending splinters of wood and expensive bourbon rain down upon them. Lucy pinned Damian to the floor behind the bar, her body acting as a shield. "Who the hell are you?" Damian rasped, his face inches from hers, his hand finally finding the cold grip of the Beretta holstered at his hip. "I'm the person who knows that the Rossi family has a mole in your security detail," Lucy hissed, her eyes scanning the undershelf for anything she could use as a weapon. "And I'm the only person who knows that the service hatch under the ice machine leads to a service tunnel the architects forgot to put on the city plans. Now, you can stay here and die with your pride, or you can follow the girl with the coffee pot." They dropped through the hatch into the damp, lightless belly of the building. The basement of the Gilded Cage was a labyrinth of rusted pipes, humaning transformers, and the sour, claustrophobic scent of old grease. Damian stumbled as they hit the concrete, his expensive shoes slick with the drainage water. He let out a sharp intake of breath, his hand clutching his shoulder where a stray splinter had carved a deep crimson line. "Hold this," Lucy commanded, handing him a flashlight she'd snatched from the bar. She didn't look at him. Her head was tilted, listening to the muffled thuds of boots on the floorboards above. The Iron Skulls aren't just here to kill you. They're here to erase you. If they get down those stairs, we're trapped in a concrete coffin. She led him through the darkness with a chilling confidence. Damian, a man used to being the smartest predator in any room, found himself following the bobbing ponytail of a waitress who seemed to move through the dark as if she were born in it. "You're an analyst," Damian realized, his voice a low vibration in the narrow corridor. No waitress knows how to track a laser sight or create a bottleneck in a crowded room. "My father was Captain Silas Whyte," Lucy said, her voice tightening like a guitar string. "He was the one who investigated your dockyard operations 5 years ago. He was also the one who was framed for evidence tampering and left to rot in a cell while men like you drank champagne." The revelation hit Damian like a physical blow. He remembered Silas Whyte, the only cop in the city who couldn't be bought. "I didn't frame him," Damian said. "I know," Lucy replied, stopping at a heavy steel door. "Marco Rossi did. And right now, Marco is the one paying those men upstairs to make sure you never testify about the ledger you're hiding. We're going to the electrical room. If I can't outgun them, I'll outsmart them." Inside the electrical room, the air hummed with enough high-voltage power to fry a city block. Lucy worked with a professional detachment that bordered on the sociopathic. She stripped her apron and used it to bind Damian's shoulder, her knots tight and efficient. "You're using me," Damian noted, watching her eyes scan the security monitors she had managed to hijack via her tablet. "I'm the bait to get you to the Rossi inner circle." "I'm using the only asset I have," Lucy replied, her fingers flying across the screen. "You want to survive? I want the Whyte ledger. It contains the names of the judges who took the payoffs to bury my father. We're a partnership of convenience, Mr. Charles. Don't mistake it for loyalty." A sudden bang echoed from the hallway. The Iron Skulls had found the hatch. Lucy looked at the massive transformer bank and then at the industrial fire suppression system. A grim smirk touched her lips. She didn't reach for a gun. She reached for a heavy copper wire. "When I kill the lights, stay low and follow the sound of my breathing," she instructed. "They have night vision, but night vision doesn't work when you overload the sensors with a high-intensity electrical arc. Close your eyes in 3, 2, 1. The room erupted in a blinding, violet flash as she shorted the main breaker. The screams of the hitmen, their retinas scorched by the sudden surge of light through their goggles, filled the basement. In the chaos, Lucy grabbed Damian's hand and pulled him into the ventilation bypass, disappearing into the city's veins before the smoke cleared. The ventilation grate gave way with a metallic groan, depositing Lucy and Damian into a narrow, lightless alleyway 3 blocks south of the restaurant. The Manhattan rain was no longer a drizzle. It was a torrential downpour, cold and unforgiving, turning the city into a blurred noir painting of charcoal grays and flickering neon. Damian leaned heavily against a soot-stained brick wall, his breath hitching in ragged intervals. The adrenaline that had carried him through the basement was beginning to ebb, replaced by the white-hot, throbbing pain in his shoulder, where the mahogany shard had struck. He looked at Lucy, who was already standing at the mouth of the alley, her eyes scanning the street with the predatory stillness of a sniper. "My car is in the municipal parking structure across the street," Lucy said, her voice cutting through the roar of the rain. She didn't look back at him. She was too busy mapping the movements of the black luxury sedans that were now prowling the block like sharks in shallow water. "It's a 10-year-old Honda with a dented fender and a mismatched door. Marco's men are currently hunting for armored SUVs and European sports cars. They're programmed to look for status. They won't even glance at a car that looks like it belongs to a struggling college student or a midnight shift waitress." Damian nodded, a grimace of respect touching his lips. "You've turned invisibility into a weapon, Lucy. Invisibility is the only reason I'm still alive, Mr. Charles. Now stay low and move on my signal." On the count of 3, they broke for the parking structure. The cold rain soaked through Damian's expensive wool suit in seconds, weighing him down, but Lucy moved with a lithe, practiced grace. They were halfway across the street when the screech of tires echoed against the canyon of buildings. A black sedan skidded around the corner, its high beams pinning them against the concrete like moths to a board. "Get in. Now." Lucy shouted, her voice a whip crack of command. She dove into the driver's seat, the engine of the Honda coughing to life, just as a spray of suppressed gunfire shattered the rear window, sending a hail of safety glass over the back seat. Damian tumbled into the passenger side, his hand instinctively reaching for the grab handle as Lucy slammed the car into reverse. She didn't drive like a waitress. She drove like a woman who had spent years practicing tactical retreats. She spun the wheel, the tires screaming against the wet asphalt as she performed a perfect J-turn, weaving the battered car through a labyrinth of yellow taxis and delivery trucks. The pursuit was relentless. The black sedans stayed glued to their bumper, the dark-tinted windows hiding the face of the man who wanted them dead. Lucy didn't panic. She watched the rhythm of the traffic lights, her mind calculating distances and timing. "Hold on," she warned, and before Damian could ask why, she veered sharply into an oncoming lane, forcing a city bus to slam on its brakes. The black sedan, caught off guard, clipped the edge of the bus and spun out, crashing into a line of parked scooters. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever met," Damian shouted over the wind rushing through the broken rear glass, "or you are fundamentally insane." Lucy didn't smile. She kept her eyes on the road, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "In this city, there's no difference between courage and madness, Damian. We're going to my apartment, in the industrial district. It's the only place in New York that hasn't been bought and paid for by the Charles Syndicate or the Rossi family. If we can make it across the bridge, we might just have a chance to breathe." Police car light, don't click away. If you enjoyed that high-speed escape, we need your help. We are begging you to help us hit 1,000 subscribers. Please smash that subscribe button, like the video, and comment escape below to keep the algorithm on our side. Your support is everything. Police car light. Lucy's apartment was a cramped, one-bedroom walk-up situated above a shuttered garment factory. It was a stark, jarring contrast to the velvet, gold, and marble world Damian Charles occupied. There were no original oil paintings here, no silk rugs, and no silent servants. Instead, the air was thick with the scent of old paper and ozone. As Damian stepped inside, his presence seemed to fill the room, making the modest space feel claustrophobic. He watched as Lucy immediately moved to the windows, drawing heavy, light-blocking curtains before she dared to turn on a single lamp. "Sit," she commanded, gesturing to a worn wooden chair. She disappeared into the bathroom and returned with a first aid kit that looked like it belonged in a field hospital. Damian watched her with a silent, intense curiosity. He noticed the way she moved, efficient, calculated, and devoid of any wasted motion. She began to cut away the ruined fabric of his suit, her fingers steady as she inspected the wound on his shoulder. "You're lucky," she murmured. "It missed the joint. But you're going to need stitches." As she worked, Damian's eyes wandered to the far wall. It wasn't a wall, it was a masterpiece of obsession. It was covered in maps of the 5 boroughs, bank statements, grainy surveillance photos, and a massive murder board connected by miles of intricate red string. At the dead center of the web was a photo of Damian's father, the founder of the syndicate, and right next to it, a photo of Lucy's father in his police dress blues. "You've been hunting us for years," Damian said, his voice quiet, filled with a strange, heavy awe. The realization that he had been under her microscopic gaze while he thought he was the one in control was a bitter pill to swallow. "I wasn't just hunting you," Lucy said, her voice tight as she pulled a needle through his skin. "I was building an obituary for every man who sat in the Gilded Cage and thought they were untouchable while they tore this city apart for profit." She stepped back, her task finished, and moved to a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. She pulled out an encrypted hard drive, the Whyte ledger. "My father died trying to get this out of the Rossi vaults," she said, her hazel eyes hardening. "This doesn't just list your crimes, Damian. It lists the names of every judge, every councilman, and every federal agent that Marco Rossi has on his payroll. Marco didn't just kill my father's career, he used your father's infrastructure to do it. You're sitting on a throne built on the bones of honest men who were broken so you could stay king." Damian looked at the board, then at the girl who had saved his life twice in the same night. He saw the fire of 1,000 injustices burning in her gaze. He realized that Lucy Whyte wasn't a victim seeking a handout. She was a force of nature seeking a reckoning. What do you want, Lucy? You could have let Vane kill me. You could have taken that drive to the feds. The feds are on that drive, Damian, she countered, leaning against a desk. I need someone who knows the inner workings of the beast. I need someone who still has enough fire left in him to burn the whole thing down from the inside. Marco is moving tonight. He thinks you're dead, and he's going to use that power vacuum to finalize the sale of this city to the highest bidder. If we don't move now, my father died for nothing, and you'll be remembered as the last, failed king of a dying empire. Police Scarlight, stop right there. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and we can't do it without you. Please, we are begging for your support. Subscribe now, like this video, and comment truth if you believe Lucy should trust Damian. Help us keep telling these epic stories. Police Scarlight. The night turned into a grueling, high-stakes tactical session. The air in the small apartment was heavy with the weight of the plan they were weaving. Lucy sat at her desk, her fingers flying across the keyboard of a dual-monitor setup that looked like it belonged in a government agency. She was hacking into the city's traffic camera network and the internal security of the Charles Syndicate's own dockyard. Damian stood behind her, his hand resting on the back of her chair, watching as she dismantled the digital defenses of his world with a terrifying ease. The plan is a scorched earth policy, Lucy explained, her eyes reflecting the cold blue light of the screens. Marco is hosting a consolidation meeting at the North Basin Shipyard tonight. He's invited the heads of the 5 families. He's going to present your death as a business opportunity, offering them pieces of your territory in exchange for their loyalty to his new regime. He's consolidating power, Damian. If he succeeds, he'll be untouchable. She pulled up a 3D blueprint of the shipyard's automated crane system and the security perimeter. I've already planted a logic bomb in their local network. I can lock every gate, shut down every light, and turn that shipyard into a steel cage with the press of a button. But I can't be in the field and on the keys at the same time. I need you on the ground to draw him out into the kill zone. Damian looked at his bandaged shoulder, then at the tactical rifle Lucy was currently cleaning with the practiced ease of a veteran soldier. You're asking me to be the tethered goat, he noted, his voice devoid of emotion. You're asking me to walk into a den of lions with nothing but a prayer. I'm asking you to be the king you claim to be, Lucy countered, her gaze meeting his with an intensity that made his breath hitch. Show them you're alive. Show them that the Charles name isn't something a snake like Marco can just wear like a stolen suit. If you walk into that meeting, every man there will hesitate. That hesitation is our window. The tension in the room was electric, a shared understanding that they were walking toward a cliff. If we do this, Damian said, there is no going back. The police will be hunting us. The mob will be hunting us. The very people who used to serve me will be the ones trying to put a bullet in my head. They've been hunting me my whole life, Damian, Lucy said, clicking a fresh magazine into the rifle. I've spent 24 years hiding in the shadows, pouring drinks for the men who ruined my family. I'm done serving. It's time I started auditing. Are you ready to settle the accounts? Damian looked at the rifle, then at the girl who had become his only ally. He reached out and took the weapon. Let's go burn his world down, Lucy. Police Scarlight, the climax is coming. Please show us some love. We are begging for your subscription. If you're still here, you're part of the family. Like, subscribe, and comment war below to show your support for Lucy and Damian. We need you. Police Scarlight. The North Basin Shipyard was a graveyard of rusted iron, skeletal cranes, and a fog so thick it felt like a physical weight. Marco Rossi stood in the center of a circle of black luxury cars, the floodlights casting long, distorted shadows across the concrete. He was flanked by the iron skulls, his chest puffed out with the unearned arrogance of a man who believed he had already won. The heads of the 5 families watched him with wary eyes, waiting for proof that the Shadow King was truly gone. Damian Charles is a ghost, Marco shouted, his voice echoing against the shipping containers. And ghosts don't collect taxes. Tonight, We rebuild the city in my image. Is that so, Marco? The voice emerged from the fog, low and cold, carrying the weight of a death sentence. Damian stepped into the light, his silhouette framed by the mist. He looked like a man returned from the grave, his eyes burning with a lethal clarity. Marco spun around, his face turning a sickly, ashen shade of gray. Kill him.
Now.
Why are you standing there? Kill him. He screamed at his hitmen, but for a heartbeat, they hesitated. The legend of Damian Charles was still more powerful than the reality of Marco's peril. That heartbeat was all Lucy needed. From her position high in the control crane, Lucy slammed the emergency lock button on her tablet. The shipyard erupted in a metallic shriek as massive automated gates slammed shut, and 10-ton shipping containers began to shift, dropping from the sky like the hammers of God to block every exit. The floodlights died, plunging the yard into a strobing, chaotic darkness. The girl. Marco hissed, remembering the waitress. The girl is the shooter? It was a massacre of surgical precision. Damian moved through the labyrinth of containers like a vengeful spirit, his Beretta barking in the dark, each shot finding its mark with the cold efficiency of a man who had nothing left to lose. Above him, Lucy provided a canopy of fire. Her rifle's thermal scope found the hitmen before they even knew they were being hunted. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was the hand of fate. One by one, the iron skulls fell until only Marco Rossi remained, trapped between a stack of steel and the man he had betrayed. Damian stepped forward, the barrel of his gun resting against Marco's forehead. "The account is closed, Marco," Damian whispered. The sound of the final shot was lost in the roar of the rising wind. Police car light, that was insane. If that showdown didn't make you want to subscribe, nothing will. We are pleading for your help to reach 1,000 subs. Like this video and comment "Reckoning" to let us know you're still watching. We can't do this without you. Police car light. The sun began to bleed over the Manhattan skyline, painting the Hudson River in shades of bruised purple and burning gold. The sirens were finally audible in the distance, a fleet of federal vehicles coming to clean up the wreckage. Marco Rossi was gone, and the White Ledger had already been uploaded to every major news outlet in the country. The old world was dying, and the names of the corrupt were being broadcast to a waking city. Damian stood on the edge of the pier, his coat fluttering in the cold morning breeze. He looked at his hands, stained with the blood of the men he had once called brothers. Lucy stood beside him, her rifle packed away, her blue waitress uniform now covered in a tactical vest. She looked older than her 24 years, her hazel eyes reflecting the exhaustion of a lifetime of waiting for this moment. "It's over," she said, her voice a low vibration. "The feds have the names. The arrests have already started. Your empire is gone, Damian. You're a free man, or at least as free as a man with your history can ever hope to be." Damian turned to her, and for the first time, he didn't see an analyst or a waitress. He saw the architect of a new future. "The city is empty, Lucy. There is a power vacuum that could start a war that would burn New York to the ground if someone doesn't fill it correctly. I'm not going back to the syndicate life. I'm going to use the Rossi assets to build something legitimate. Something my father would have been proud of before he lost his way." He held out a hand toward her, a gesture of partnership that had been forged in the fire of the last 12 hours. "I need an auditor. Someone who isn't afraid to tell the king when he's overstepping. Someone who knows where all the secrets are buried because she's the one who dug them up. I can't do this alone, Lucy. I don't want to." Lucy looked at his hand, then out at the city she had saved from its own rot. She didn't take it immediately. She looked him in the eyes, searching for any trace of the monster he used to be. Finding only the man she had rescued, she finally let a small, dangerous smirk touch her lips. "My hourly rate is going to be astronomical, Mr. Charles. And I don't work for tips." "I'd pay anything for the truth, Lucy," he replied. And as they walked away from the docks, the city woke up to a new dawn, built by a man who feared nothing and a waitress who had changed everything. They stepped into the light together, no longer master and servant, but the founders of a new, cleaner empire. Police Garlight, the ending we all wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking with us. We are begging you one last time to help us hit our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Please like, subscribe, and comment Legacy to show your love. Join the family today and never miss an epic story again.
Police Garlight.